who has a bad experience has the potential to influence tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. That never happened before. So those are some of the core distinctions. There's a few dozen more, but those are the major distinctions between the old game of business and the new game of business.
What you just said is quite interesting, especially the part about one buyer's bad purchasing experience can actually influence so many other people. And that is even more so the case thanks to social media. I mean, if you're not having a good day with a company, you could turn around, open your Facebook, and let a few thousand people know in a matter of seconds. So what you just said is actually quite pertinent.
Yes, and I'll give you a quick, there's example after example after example, but one of the ones that comes to mind is that guy who had his guitar broken by American Airlines.
Yes.
And it was like within a week, he wrote a little song about it.
Yes.
And millions of people saw that. Well, American Airlines could have really avoided all that negative publicity if they would have just dealt with him and replaced his guitar on the first request. But they were stuck in the old game thinking, which is, we can stonewall this guy. Who's going to know about it? Who does he influence? He doesn't have much reach. And before you know it, I don't know what the number is now, but I know a couple of million people watched that video. That never happened before in humankind.
Absolutely.
Where a person could have an experience like that and impact a company. Now, all of a sudden, that was a wake-up call. And there's hundreds of experiences and hundreds of examples like that. So yes, companies are now, for the first time, monitoring social media. They're looking for people who are complaining out there that they don't know about. And again, one of the new game distinctions is that people will influence about 10 times as many people with a bad experience as they will with a good experience. So it really pays to monitor what's happening with your customers. And people are very forgiving. I found even in my own career, 33 years I'm coming up to my anniversary in October, and I noticed that when we make a mistake, we drop the ball, which is going to happen. Nobody's perfect. People just want to know that there's a human being on the other side who really acknowledges, respects, and appreciates that they're going through a tough time. So they don't expect perfection, but they do expect humanity. And that's another huge distinction, is that in the new game, if you demonstrate a little empathy and a little compassion, seeing as there's so little in most of the systemic world we live in, your company will rise head and shoulders above the rest. So people don't want you to be perfect. They just want you to be courteous, and they want you to be responsive. So if you have a bad experience with somebody, as a buyer, you want to share it. You want to let them know because it's constructive to them. And as a company, you want to handle that as best you can and as quickly as you can. And actually, people who have a bad experience that's managed and handled and then turned around are much more likely to go out and refer you than people who just have a good experience from the very beginning.
And that makes absolute total sense. I absolutely would see that being the case. So one thing, Mitch, even though we're talking about the new game of business, and some of the examples that you just gave really reflects this, we are still talking about a buyer and a seller, which means that there's still some selling involved. There's a transaction involved, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Since most of the people watching this are entrepreneurs, and a lot of people who are in business, regardless if it's a product business or a service business, they're going to have to sell something at some point in time. And for some entrepreneurs, and I don't want to generalize, but for a lot of women, going out and selling their business and selling what they do, they'd rather shave their own heads than do it. And I know that you are one of those coaches out there who has coached more women than most coaches out there. So you definitely understand that distinction. And I really would love for you to be able to elaborate on that.
Well, you're right. I have coached over 250,000 women. And of course, I actually have a kind of a kinship with women in a way, because I took 10 years off in the middle of my career to raise my son as a full-time, single, stay-at-home, entrepreneurial dad.
Okay.
So not only do I understand what entrepreneurial moms go through, I also can sense and feel what their hesitation and reluctance is to sell, because most of the selling courses and the training over the past 30 years that I've been in business have been created by men. And those training courses, those selling systems, the modalities, the methodology.